Hello and welcome again to the class. It's good to know that you're around. Thank you so much. Now, we already started with minerals, and previously we've looked at calcium and we talked about historical perspective, the sources of calcium, absorption, functions, and the others. And then we delve into phosphorus, in which case we started with the atomic number being 31, the atomic weight, sorry, and then we looked at it and the aspect of the dietary, the historical perspective, how is discovered phosphorus and the others. We've also looked at the sources of dietary phosphorus, function, absorption, metabolism. And in this, we're going to be drawing the quarter because we'll be looking at deficiency symptom. Deficiency means not insufficient amount or level. Now, certain things in the body are not in particular range, in particular number. It's usually in a range, between a range of these two days. So if you have that in the blood, you'll be able to say, okay, if you have enough in the range, you say, okay, you have it enough in the blood. If it's too much, it is usually a case of hyper and whatever it is, depending on what you're considering. If it's too low, it is hypo. We talked about that previously. Now let's go into deficiency symptoms quickly. Now, this is phosphorus deficiency symptoms. It is referred to as hypophosphatemia. Now, we talked about it previously that the way to understand scientific terms is try to break them down, understand the various component words, suffixes or prefixes, and then the root word. You know, hypo, like we said, means less or low quantity, and then phosphor referring to phosphorus itself, and then temia means in blood or in blood. So have low phosphorus in the blood, so that's what it means. So deficiency symptom of phosphorus is actually referred to hypophosphatemia, in which case the reverse is true. If it's too much, you have hyperphosphatemia. Now let's go on. Now, it's usually a rare condition. It doesn't happen more often than not because its function is closely related to that of calcium. However, whenever you have phosphorus deficiency, it's usually because of any of these three. In humans, usually chronic malnutrition, chronic alcoholism, or special medical treatment. But now when it comes to animals, when you have deficiency like in poultry and the others, you'll be talking about osteoporosis, just other ones like deficiency symptoms like weakness and fatigue, and also osteomalacia, in which case we're talking about softening of the bones and pains which happens. Then there's also weakness of the muscles. Why do we talk about it? Because phosphorus is important in contraction of muscles and also sending of nervous impulses by the brain to the spinal cord and the others. Just as it affects humans, it also affects animals, poultry, cattle, sheep, and goats. Then there's also impaired growth, absolutely, because phosphorus is a major component of the bones. Now, phosphorus along with calcium help a good and a healthy bone and teeth or beak for birds. Now, if you don't have sufficient enough, you will not see bone growing properly, so growth to be impaired. And other hormones or other factors, for example, cells of the body which structural component phosphorus is part of, formation will be affected and impaired. There's also respiratory failures and difficulty in breathing. These are also part of the deficiency symptoms of phosphorus. Now, one of the things I want to look at here properly is the fact that with phosphorus, you have the interaction with calcium. There's a lot of similarity between phosphorus and calcium, in which case its abundance, just like in calcium, is in the teeth and also in the bone. We've said previously in the previous class, if you've not looked at them, please go over to the previous class, the previous videos, and check. About 60 to 80% of phosphorus that is absorbed or utilized in the body is actually in the bone and in the teeth. Very important factor, very important thing to look at. Now, having said this, I want to quickly go through this, but of course we run out of time. Just to give a benefit, the historical perspective, phosphorus was actually discovered in 1669, in which case it was by a German scientist, alchemist, who was actually looking out for the presence of something that glowed. So phosphorus, in essence, was first called the light bearer in a Greek term. So light bearer because when they discovered it, it glowed in darkness. So that was how they looked at it. And then further studies showed by the 20th century that phosphorus has very important part in the health of the teeth and the bones. Then we also now look at sources of phosphorus, dietary phosphorus. You have them in abundance, biodiversity. In meat, you have them a lot in meat. In fish, you have them in bones of birds and bones of animals. And also you have them in milk, you have them in cheese. You have them now in plant matter and plant sources. The plant sources, you have them in plant tissues. You have especially spinach, very green leafy vegetables are very rich in phosphorus. Phosphorus is a very good component in any in photosynthetic processes. So you have a lot of it in green leafy vegetables, spinach and the others. Then we'll go, and also it's usually incorporated or as an additive in some soft drink and some baked products. So these are the sources of phosphorus, just for the knowledge. Now, function of phosphorus, we talked about it in the very class before this, the very lesson, video before this. Function is good as a component of the ribonucleic acid, RNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. It's also a very good structural component of the cells of the body. So you have the cells of the body. It's also very good for healthy teeth and for bones. So phosphorus is also very good for muscle contraction, for nervous impulses. These are very important functions of phosphorus in the body. Then we have looked at absorption of phosphorus. How does phosphorus get absorbed? Two pathways have been discovered, usually the passive one. When phosphorus is in abundance, so it is a passive way it gets absorbed. On the other hand, when there is a low phosphorus in the body, in which case hypophosphatemia, the body synthesizes calcitriol, which is a precursor of vitamin D, which helps in reabsorption of phosphorus in the body by a process called active transport. And so this is actually very important. Three hormones, apart from others, very key hormones, calcitriol, which is vitamin D precursor, is important, helps in the absorption of it. It helps in the absorption of it. And also another hormone being parathyroid hormone and the FGF23, that is fibroblast growth factor. It's also another hormone which regulates the presence of phosphorus in the body. When it becomes too much, it's excreted via the urine, and when it needs to be stored, it's stored largely in the bones and in the teeth, largely in the bones. So phosphorus, just like calcium, stored in the bone and in the teeth when it needs to be gotten rid of because it's necessary. The kidney does ultrafiltration and takes them out via urine. Then we also looked at metabolism of phosphorus. In which case we talked about the way by which phosphorus is broken down. Metabolism, by the way, is about two processes mainly, the catabolism and the anabolism. Put together, metabolism. In which case catabolism refers to breaking down of large molecules or the molecule, and then in the process anabolism takes to building them again. The structure may differ, but this time it's going to make it useful and suitable for that particular organelle or system part or tissue or cell that it's actually meant for. For example, I give you this. You take meat, like a person eats meat, you take meat, you have the phosphorus there. The phosphorus there is taken. First of all, catabolism happens to break it down, and then there is a reshaping of it, restructuring of it, and then anabolism process, anabolic process, which is a building of it to fit into different parts. So what you have as phosphorus in what is eaten, becomes broken down and then built up inside the body of the animal that's eating, either any of the livestock, cattle, sheep, goats, or poultry, or human. So the both process happens simultaneously at same time. So both categories. So that's metabolism of it. And then today, the deficiency symptoms, I've already seen. The main name of it is hypophosphatemia. That's a reduced low quantity of phosphorus in the blood. Osteoporosis, osteomalacia, which is bone softening as a result of lack of phosphorus, which is just as lack of calcium. Causes muscle weakness. This is basically and essentially the opposite of the function of phosphorus. Now, when you have it in abundance or in a normal level, you have the good functions. When it's actually low, like you have in hypophosphatemia, you have the deficiency symptoms. Thank you so much. Now, if you think you have one or two things to add that we have perhaps by oversight, overlooked, please do comment. Please also like if you see it's good knowledge, and also share. If you have a question, please ask. This is going to help us know we're doing a good job and also what to give out in the next class. So please stay tuned again. In the next video, we'll be coming up with another and very important minerals good for livestock and for humans. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.